Hi there. Would you like to see how the past simple passive voice is used in practice? Great. This is how you do it. 1. Watch this video, and before each part, 1 to 2, check if you know all of the words and phrases from the list. 2. If you don't, you can use our Quizlet course to learn them. It is available in 6 languages and it's for free. 3. If you know all of the words and phrases, just listen to the stories. This way, you will practice the past simple passive voice, vocabulary, and listening skills. These stories come from this book, so if you like books or need the vocabulary lists and stories in a paper form, you can get the book on Amazon. Link in the description. Are you ready? Let's start. Part 1. Past simple passive voice, 1. Story 1.
The Harry Potter books. The Harry Potter books were written by J.K. Rowling. The first book, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, was published in 1997. At first, there were only 500 copies of the book. 200 of them were sent to bookshops, and the other 300 were given to libraries. The story of a young wizard quickly became very popular in Great Britain, so it was translated into many languages. It was read by millions of people, and most of them loved it. In 2001, the book was made into a movie. The movie was shown in cinemas for the first time in November 2001, and it was watched by a huge number of viewers. The Harry Potter series ended in 2007, but it is still famous today.
Story 2.
What happened to Jessica's car? Jessica's car was stolen 2 years ago. Jessica was at work, so the car was parked in front of her office. When Jess walked out of the office, she saw that the car was gone. The police were called a few minutes later by her friend, Mike, because Jessica was too angry and shocked. She couldn't say anything. 3 police officers arrived quickly, and they started looking for the car. After a few days, it was found in the forest about 25 kilometers away from the city. It was given back to Jessica 2 days later. She was surprised that the car windows weren't broken. How did the thief get into the car? How did he or she drive away? The thief wasn't found, so nobody knows that.
Story 3.
One of the oldest houses in town. Tony lives in a small house with his wife and 2 children. The house has a very long history. It was built by his great-great-grandfather Joseph in 1867, and it was painted by Joseph's best friend Barry. The furniture was chosen by Tony's great-great-grandmother Abigail because she was known for her elegant style. The walls were decorated with portraits of the family. Every portrait was painted by a different artist. Almost 100 years later, those paintings were sold to a museum by Tony's grandfather. The money was used to send Tony's father to school. The house was given to Tony in 1993. He moved in with his family in 1994, a week after his first son was born.
The end of Part 1. Part 2. Past simple passive voice, 2. Story 4.
Lucy's TV debut. Yesterday was a very special day for Lucy because she was interviewed on live television for the first time. She was invited to the studio to talk about traveling, learning languages, and working on her first book. When she arrived there, she was taken to the makeup room. Her hair and makeup were done quickly, and then she was introduced to the interviewer. His name was Jamie, and he was very warm and welcoming. Lucy was still nervous, but Jamie helped her relax a bit and even made her laugh. A few minutes before the interview, she was taken to the set. The lights and cameras were turned on, and it was time to start. Lucy was welcomed with loud applause. She smiled and answered all the questions. The interview was a big success.
Story 5.
An important invention. The telephone was invented by Alexander Graham Bell in 1876. Bell was born in 1847 in Scotland. He didn't enjoy going to school, so he was taught mostly at home. When Alexander was a young man, he and his father taught deaf people how to speak. The idea to create a telephone came to him in the 1870s. The first telephone was built by his friend and assistant, Thomas Watson. It was tested and used for the first time in March 1876. A few months later, it was shown to people during a public event in Philadelphia. Everyone loved it and wanted to use it at home. In 1877, the Bell Telephone Company was created. When Alexander Graham Bell died in 1922, many telephones in the United States and Canada were turned off for 1 minute.
Story 6.
One of the most famous English bands. The Beatles were one of the most famous rock bands in the history of music. The band was formed in Liverpool in the 1960s. It was started by a young and talented guitarist, John Lennon. The other three musicians, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr, joined the band soon. The band's first song was published in 1962. It was often played on the radio, and many people loved it. The next song, Please Please Me, quickly became an even bigger hit. It was listened to and sung in the whole country. The Beatles became very popular all over the world. All of their albums were bought by millions of people.
The end of part 2. Great job completing all of the stories. Well done. You've practiced the past simple passive voice, vocabulary, and listening skills. Remember to review the words and phrases you've learned. Try to review the vocabulary every day. Even 5 minutes per day will make you better. And continue learning with our stories. Here are some that you might like. Happy learning.